So we are here with the Renegade Society Radio, and we are very excited to have all of you with us this evening. Scott Gaeta here, president of Renegade Game Studios. I am Sarah Erickson, and we are delighted to have Paul Dennen from Direwolf, designer of Clank, the board game, adventure deck building game, here with us this evening. And so we have been asking you guys for the last couple of days to give us any of your burning questions about Clank. And Paul has lots of fantastic answers for you. So Paul, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So just to get started, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you ended up with Direwolf, what you've been doing with your gaming experience, and how you got here?
Sure. Grew up playing a lot of games. Went to college for computer science, though, and didn't go straight into the games industry. I was a software engineer for a while. Then I hopped into games in the late 90s, and I've been working on like online card games for almost 20 years now, I would say. I worked on one of the first online card games in the late 90s called Sanctum. But yeah, I've always been a big fan of physical board games. My family played a lot of board games when I was growing up in the late 70s and 80s. And yeah, I've always wanted to work on board games, and somehow I convinced my boss that, hey, we shouldn't just make computer games, let's make a board game. And,
oh wait, so you're saying it's all your fault?
Perhaps.
Okay.
That's awesome. So you're at Direwolf now, and you have been working on Clank and some other little side projects. And how have you ever done board games before? Or is Clank really your first one?
Clank is definitely my first officially published board game. In the 90s, I put together a few prototypes and went around to conventions and tried to sell them, but wasn't very fruitful. A friend and I made a really big fantasy war game in the mid-90s that was kind of fun, but very old school. And then Settlers of Catan and that wave of games hit us, and we were like, wow, games can be even more fun. But then I was kind of just caught up in computer gaming for a long time, and didn't have as much time to tinker on my own games until the last several years.
That's awesome. So what inspired you to make Clank?
I would say, it was more like a few years ago at Direwolf Digital, we were exploring different types of games. We traditionally make strategy card games like card battlers, but we were exploring deck building as a digital option, and I actually pitched a version of Clank to Direwolf in like late 2013 that was very much digital only. Players would simultaneously make decisions, and you're all thieves in a dungeon. It was still the same theme. You're trying to escape from the dungeon with as much of the dragon's loot as you could, trying not to make noise. But it was a very different feeling game in that you would be presented with a variety of options, and you'd decide, like, I want to grab the treasure at the end of the rope bridge, and somebody else might cut the rope bridge while I'm trying to grab it, and then I would fall. So it's a mind game. It didn't quite work out. It was a little too complicated too. And then basically a couple of years later, I just kind of resurrected it into a pure physical board game, and kind of like the bag idea kind of came together, and it kind of all worked smoothly that way.
So back when I visited in 2014 to talk to you guys about another project, we played some other board games that you guys had developed and that came from you, but we didn't play Clank in 2014. And then a year or so later, when Scott called me and said, hey, let's make a board game together, I thought it was going to be one of those that we played in 2014. What was going on? Why were you guys hiding Clank in 2014 from me?
We weren't. It didn't exist in that form yet. I think it was definitely after your visit. Your visit may have kind of inspired me to go into like full motion on trying to get something cool to put in front of you. Okay. I don't quite remember now.
Okay, well, that's fair. But yeah, so it turned out pretty good, I think.
So Scott, I remember you telling me a story about the very first prototype you saw of Clank. What did that look like?
So when Scott Martins called me up and said, hey, let's, we're serious, let's like make this board game together. And he sent me the prototype, and it came in, and it was the typical like cards and sleeves. You put some other card game in there, and then you put your printouts off your printer of other sleeves. But the board, I think, was drawn. It was like white plain paper mounted on a piece of cardboard, and it was drawn maybe in crayon.
Oh, come on.
No, it was great. It was crayon. It was very colorful, and it was definitely hand drawn. And then I sat down and I put it on the table. I went into my game room in the house and set it up, and I played a 4-player game all by myself, and learned how to play and played it out and everything. But it was a very charming board. So.
I think that's really cool and sort of inspirational for other game designers, that you don't have to have these amazing graphics and beautiful pictures like the end product that we see today in Clank. You can start out somewhere that's a little bit more humble.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I tell people that all the time, like, don't go over the top and spend a ton of time on graphic design for your prototype. We'll get to that. So no, it was fine. But I didn't expect a deck builder. Honestly, when Scott called me, I thought it was going to be one of the games that we played in 2014, and it showed up and he's like, it's a deck builder. And, I think I've told this story before. Ironically, we had on our website, on our submissions page, where it said games not to pitch us, one of them was deck builder, because we really only wanted to do a deck builder if it was something special, and this one was. So there you go.
Well, thank you for telling us a little bit about sort of the beginning of Clank. We do have a few fan questions. Evan Irwin, speaking of the beginning of Clank, was wondering how long the design and development took for the game. And it came out in October of 2016, so it sounds like a couple of years.
Yeah, so Evan Irwin, I think I know. I worked with him back in the day on a game called Star Chamber. He was my community manager for a while. Nice guy. Went to Origins convention with him, in fact, to show Star Chamber off. So hi, Evan. Unless you're a totally different Evan Irwin, and then I apologize for the confusion. But yeah, it didn't take that long. Like, unless you count all the way back to 2013, which I really wouldn't count because it felt like a totally different game then. It was really, I think, over the holiday break of 2015, I started putting it together. I basically spent my whole holiday week just building this board game and trying different things, drawing on those boards that Scott referenced before. Like, I just went down to the art supply store, bought a bunch of boards, and I would just scribble on them and draw the boards and try different variations of boards and cards. And then brought it in January, showed it to Scott Martins, our president, and he was really excited by it as well. So he let me work on it with the other designers throughout, I can't remember, January through whatever it took to launch it that year at Gen Con. It was like a frenzy, actually.
Yeah.
Because we knew it was good, but it was rough. So we just focused on it for a couple months, 2-3 months, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really, I think at one point when we said, all right, let's make this thing. What do we have to do to get it out for Gen Con? And Scott was like, when do you need it by? I'm like, well, ideally yesterday, but it was right down to the wire, and we did the air freight things in. They were rolling right off the factory line and jumped on a plane and came to Gen Con. We made it by the skin of our teeth. But we made it.
And that is a lucky coincidence, by the way. Like, there's a lot of game ideas that I work on that would not come together in a few months. It was happenstance. It was fortune. It was passion too, like a lot of late nights. But a lot of game ideas, you come up with something cool, then you run into a roadblock, and it's not trivial to solve that problem, and you just want to sit on it for a while, and you work on other things while it's in the back of your mind and other people's minds, and you throw ideas back and forth for weeks or even months, and then you finish it. So like Clank, we were just fortunate.
Yeah. I just had a follow-up. So do you find that sometimes, like, when you do get stuck on a design, that it helps maybe to just shelve that thing and then come back to it after a period of time with maybe a little bit of a fresh perspective?
Yeah, I think so. Like, a lot. I mean, if you go to the genesis of game ideas, like, a lot of them I'll just throw out. Like, in the first day or two of working on, like, I'm excited about something, and then I run into a roadblock. I'm like, So the next day, you're not as excited about it as the previous day. But yeah, like, if you're still excited about it and there's a problem that you can't solve, like, just put it on ice for a while and
Yeah.
come back to it later. Yeah.
Cool.
We have one fan, Mason Sokol, who was actually wondering about this precisely. He asked, he says that I'm constantly stunned by the smoothness of the cards in original Clank. How much of that is owed to the development team at Direwolf? And I think there he's asking, so when you were creating this, how much of it was you bouncing ideas off of other people, and how big is that team?
Yeah, a lot of the smoothness of the card file comes down to the other designers. A couple in particular that I would call out. Andy Claudis kind of like took the cards from me at one point. Like, I don't know if I was just busy on another project that day, and he came back to me like the next day with like, look at these cards I got, and he had come up with a lot of good cards for the game that were simplified, smooth to play. And Evan Lawrence also put in a lot of work on the original Clank. So our team at that time was just a few of us. There was another designer, Kevin Spack, who threw in some additional design as well, came up with a lot of the funny flavor text. I apologize to any designers I'm forgetting that contributed on the original Clank. But yeah, those 2 or 3 guys really helped a lot to kind of solidify the game, and they helped me playtest even before. And honestly, more designers than that, Devin Rule, other designers on the team that just even played it once and gave feedback, because Clank quickly went through iterations. Like, I came in January, there was a time in which there was no big map. It was just like a stairway down, and you would just go like down like one level at a time, and quickly realized that that was not fun. You could like predict exactly how many turns it would take to get out. Like, that was horrible. So from then I came up with the Crystal Caves, added some variants so that you weren't sure, and added more excitement. Forking paths. The whole big map kind of came later after that first simple map.
Nice. So Shred Demon asks, how did you all come up with the flavor text?
It's definitely a group effort. I'm not the best flavor text writer of the team. I would say Kevin Spack, Evan, and Andy are all better than I am at that. Although I'm always like the one pushing for lightheartedness, humor, funny jokes, and just like keep it light and funny. Like, we're not trying to make a serious IP game. Like, we know that this is kind of token inspired. There's a dragon and some dwarves in there trying to get back their treasure. The monkey stuff was kind of my idea. Like, monkey stuff, Mr. Whiskers, like some of the true silly concepts I really pushed hard for, and our boss Scott wasn't quite sure, I think, about going as lighthearted as we went, but I think we found a good blend of the box art, and a lot of the art looks cool.
Yeah.
But underneath the hood, like you smile a lot when you read the flavor text and when you think about the cards.
Yeah. Well, I think that the lighthearted nature and kind of the tongue-in-cheek nature of the game is what makes certain aspects of it really work. Where, right, normally player elimination it tends to be a bad thing, right? Like, you don't want players to be eliminated from the game, but in that context and with the push your luck element of the game and the tongue-in-cheek nature of the game, like, player elimination is fun, right? You don't
exactly.
Yeah. So I mean,
and we did, also try to make sure that once a player was eliminated, there wasn't much game left, right?
Right.
Like, we would have been really disappointed, and I think there were versions where we changed the rules because, like, no, I was sitting around for too long after I got knocked out. That was just too much for me to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So the dragon track, the amount of cubes, the added pressure when somebody is knocked out got added because of that.
Yep.
Makes a lot of sense. So you made Clank a deck building adventure, and then after that you guys worked on Sunken Treasures, which is a fantastic expansion that lets you use all the same original cards, then you add some cards, add a new board. So where did that idea come from? Why did you guys want to delve into the water?
No particular reason. I was honestly looking for, there's kind of like 2 different approaches of design, one top down, one bottom up. Top down being like, I've got a theme, I've got I want to go to this place, or it wants to be about trolls, or you just have an idea and then you try to think of mechanics that match that idea. Bottom-up design is more like, oh, I've got a mechanical idea that's going to be really cool for players to experience. What kind of theme matches that? And honestly, I like to try to work from both ends as much as I can. So I was looking for a mechanical idea that had a sweet theme attached to it. And I just went through a bunch of ideas and I came upon the water is cool for a deck builder, because if you go underwater, now you're at risk. You're going to have to get out of the water the next turn, but you don't know what you're going to draw. So there's that excitement of oh, am I going to get enough boots to get out of here? So it felt like both a sweet theme and a sweet mechanic. So that's how that one came about.
I really like it because when I think about risky, adventurous type themes, underwater caving is at the very top of that list. And this just fits so perfectly because you really don't know how much air do you have, how much time is it going to take you to get out. I think it's just absolutely perfect for this. So I was really happy when I saw that one. But I must say, I love space, and Star Trek has been one of my favorite things forever. So when I heard that we were going to do Clank in Space, that hit all the right buttons for me.
Yeah, I'm a big sci-fi fan as well. I don't know what I'm a bigger fan of, fantasy or sci-fi, but they're both fun.
So
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's cool. So John Paul is asking, was Clank the original title from the early design, or was there another noisy word being considered? So I remember some conversations that I was a part of, but you guys may have been talking about this well before I was involved. So
yeah, so definitely the word Clank was in the game, even in that 2013 pitch that I referenced. +1 Clank, +2 Clank was on cards back then. But I had never imagined that the name of the game would be Clank. I just thought it was a cool word to put as a mechanic. But then my boss Scott was actually pushed for it. He thought, no, the game name should just be Clank. I had come up with a bunch of just kind of more generic sounding game ideas, and I'm not the best namer, so I knew what I'm pitching is not necessarily the best thing. So I was happy to go along with Clank.
Yeah, I can remember having that conversation too, and it was yeah, sure, why not? And then I think our first localized version of the game was in German, and our German partner came back and says Clank doesn't really translate, so in Germany it's Klong, right, with a K. So we learn all about other country sound effects and what makes sense. It's kind of cool.
Oh, we have one pretty fun question.
All right.
Trevin Taylor would like to know if Mr. Whiskers is based on a real cat.
Definitely not. I am a cat fan, and I've had a lot of cats over the years. I'm down to one now, Nayantara, and she is kind of cruel, like Mr. Whiskers can be. So maybe subconsciously, Mr. Whiskers was based on Nayantara, but no.
I always assumed that Mr. Whiskers was based on all cats, because all cats can kind of be jerks.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
Pretty typical cat. Nice. What other good questions do we have? So we definitely have lots of people hoping to find out more about what the future is. But let's talk about Clank in Space for a minute. So Clank in Space, you did actually just launch the app for it, which is one of my favorite things about Clank in general, being able to download the app and have all this extra content at your fingertips. And you just barely launched the Clank in Space app. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I think in December we launched a campaign for Clank in Space, like a solo player campaign. And I have to give credit to other people here. Chris Hill, Andy Claudis were kind of the key contributors to making that happen. The artists here did great work to get it all done. But basically, I told Andy last year, wouldn't it be cool to have an epic campaign with different missions you get to go through, and you assemble the board in different ways? And he just took that simple idea and ran with it and came up with all the missions. I think there's 5 of them, and came up with the parody scroll that gets you into the mission. It's a cohesive yet silly story. that you get to go through. It's got surprises. It's got surprise mechanics. So if you haven't played it yet, I'm definitely not going to spoil anything. But I recommend playing through it. It's a fun romp for a solo player. And in January, just a couple weeks ago, maybe we launched an update to the app so that now it's got multiplayer support with a lieutenant character that you tap the screen when certain things happens, and the lieutenant kind of throws twists at the players as they play, which is the same as we had for the Fantasy Clank.
Yeah, you made a lot of solo gamers very, very happy. that was really cool. Yeah, it was great. Oh, let's see. Somebody says, how long must I wait for MonkeyBot 3 million?
Not content with MonkeyBot 3000, I guess.
No, I guess. Yeah, go big or go home.
Yeah, that's right. Those MonkeyBots are pretty fun.
Yeah. What do you got there, Sarah? Who's next?
I am looking. We've got all sorts of things. We've gone over a lot of these. You gave us lots of great information already. So is the idea to keep making expansions for Clank and Clank in Space, or is the idea to release a new base game each year and continue on? This comes from Michael Sherman on Board Game Geek.
Definitely not continuing to release total reboots that aren't compatible. We do want to just continue both the lines of the fantasy version and the sci-fi version for the time being. I want to call out Susie Dancer on the chat, said that she loves the Cranky Doctor card. The flavor text makes me chuckle every single time. I have to credit Evan Lorenz for that one. He came up with that card, not just the flavor text, but the concept of the card, the concept of a doctor who's just like, I'm just a healer. I'm just a doctor.
Well,
no skill.
Yeah, and if people don't know out there, Evan Lorenz, who works on Clank and other stuff at Direwolf, his background, I worked with Evan back in the day at Decipher, and Evan spent, I don't even know how many years and years and years as one of the main designers and the lead designer on Star Trek TCG. So yeah. Evan is a fountain of useless sci-fi knowledge.
Indeed he is.
He knows it all.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So this is another actual question from Michael Sherman. He had some good stuff. He's wondering what kind of process and preparation goes into the quick output of base games and expansions. For example, did Paul finish Clank in Space and start burning rubber on the Mummy's Curse? I'm guessing he's already working on the next thing.
That's a good question. Kind of hard to answer because sometimes things work differently. There isn't just one process. But let's see. We are usually working on a couple different games at a time. We usually kind of assign someone to kind of own a phase of it. Like, for example, I worked on Clank in Space a lot on my own and then brought in other people and then kind of maybe went away for a week and let like Andy try to like play test and develop the card set, for example, right? So like different people have different roles sometimes, and I should say that Andy actually took up the design lead for the Mummy's Curse. I just kind of gave him some random ideas, some of which he used and some of which he didn't for the Mummy's Curse. Like I just wanted a pyramid board that was a diamond shape on one side and a square on the other side. I thought that was hilarious. And the pyramid idea actually came from one of our engineers, a guy named Matt Diegler. He plays Clank with his kids every once in a while, and he came in one day and said, it would be cool going down a pyramid. So I was like, yeah, you're right, that would be cool. So then I gave it to Andy and he fleshed out the design and worked with Evan and Daryl Hardy and Tim McKnight to kind of finish that design. Like I actually didn't do a ton on the design of the Mummy's Curse. I actually did more in the development phase. So, we take different roles depending on our other projects going on here at Direwolf and our own, Evan's going on vacation next week, so somebody else kind of take over that development role.
Yeah. Now, so it's interesting to hear the background of the evolution of the pyramid board, because I remember when you explained it to me last year, and you were like, so one of the maps is going to be a pyramid, and you take the board and you just turn it. We took the regular board, so it was a diamond on the table, and it was like, whoa, mind blown.
Yeah, you didn't laugh as much as I was expecting. So like, I actually wanted to pitch like on the back of the box, like innovative diamond-shaped board. And it was, obviously meant to be like tongue in cheek, but you were just like, you stared at me like, what are you talking about? Like, okay, maybe that's not as funny as I thought it was.
No, that's my reflex action when I'm at a convention and talking to designers, just to show no So, no, I thought it was really funny, and I keep retelling that story. It was pretty hilarious. So.
I really do think that the tongue-in-cheek nature of Clank is just one of the best parts of it. For example, Daryl Sando in our chat is saying, is space skunk based off Rocket Raccoon?
Yes, he is. I can't deny it. Like some parodies may be a little vague, and some of the cards are based on multiple things. Like they're a mishmash of parodies. Like the Crystal Thief has Jane's hat from Firefly, but it's like this stainless steel rat, which for old sci-fi fans, there's an old book series called The Stainless Steel Rat. So, so like we pull the parodies from lots of places. Some famous, some not so much.
Yeah, I had those books as a kid. I was in the sci-fi book club. You would just get a book a month. I remember getting The Adventures of the Stainless Steel Rat.
Do you think that's the most obscure parody that you have in there, or are there even more?
Oh no. No, and the next expansion will have a couple more that are pretty obscure as well, I'm sure.
I know there are a few Board Game Geek lists of people trying to figure out what all of them are. We'll have to definitely watch that for the next one. Yeah,
I guess I just gave away the fact that like I think their list at some point only had like one inspiration per card. And we were looking at it going like, I wonder if they're going to realize that it's also this. But,
now they know. So BGGers, you need to add another column to that list.
That's right.
Crazy
My dog also thinks that they've screwed up.
Whoa.
So another question I see here is, again, Michael Sherman is saying, how many different designs are we working on for the Clank line at any given time? How many different projects do we have in the pipe?
Well, in the pipe, I mean, like I just threw together a pitch for something that you saw just today, I think.
Yeah.
Doesn't even count as in the pipe. Like it might just get canceled before it gets, built. It's more of a, just like I went on a lark and had this idea and spent a bit of time on it. Wrote up a one-pager for you. My boss just recently took a look at it. So if that kind of thing counts, then like several things are in the pipe at any one point in time. But like, we have some solid like Clank and Space expansions in the pipe that are definitely in the pipe. Like we're not gonna, they're not kind of crazy new things. We've got, the Mummy's Curse is coming out, but we've got another idea for something after that even.
So one of the things that we hear a lot of, right? So after we launched Clank in Space, and I've talked about this before, the fans were like, "Oh, now you guys aren't going to put out fantasy stuff," and we quickly went out there and told people, "Of course we're going to put out fantasy stuff. Each game will have its turn. Don't worry, we're going to support them both." So we did announce Mummy's Curse, and we've alluded to that there is something coming for Clank in Space, that there's an expansion, but we haven't told anybody really anything about it. So if you want to tell them a little bit about it, what do we have in store for Clank in Space? We don't have to spill all the beans, maybe a quarter of a can of beans.
Okay. All right. That is interesting. I would say that for Clank in Space, you can expect to find out some of the nefarious plans that Lord Erraticus is up to. Basically, like it's an expansion where on any one particular session you'll be playing inside of a setting in which Erraticus is trying to do something nasty, and there's a bunch of different nasty things he wants to do, so that it's very replayable. You just pick one. All right, look, Erraticus is up to this no good thing. Let's do it. Let's get his stuff.
All right, nice. So more thieving and more Lord Erraticus making life
hijinks. Yeah.
more hijinks.
So one person was asking, do you think you will make more modular boards for Clank? That was James Blayton. And if you want to answer that question, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I would love to. I have played around with modular boards for Fantasy Clank, and it's something I'm passionate about, and I would like to make that happen. It's obviously not happening with the Mummy's Curse, but I hope to make it happen, within an expansion or two after the Mummy's Curse to do something modular.
There we go.
Nice. See, all of your questions getting answered. Pretty exciting.
You said it on the internet now, so it has to come true.
I do really like the modular boards. Being able to just have a different setup every single time you play makes it more interesting. And that's the whole point of the game, is that every time you play, it's going to be a little different just with the cards coming out. And now you also have the modular boards. I think that really adds to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think there's a place for both, because the modular boards do add replayability in a way, but fixed boards can have a really interesting setting to them and a feeling that they give you. And just because you can flip them over or play with different boards, it's in a way, it's kind of still modular, right? Like you can play with the Sunken Treasures set on the Mummy's Curse expansion, and that's kind of modular.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We had another pretty interesting idea. Stephen Alfarini asks, any ideas for team versus team mode?
We definitely have ideas for that. We did throw together a prototype of a 2v2 mode and tried it out, 1 week, and it was somewhat inspiring. It was somewhat cool, but we didn't have enough time to truly dig in and flesh it out or make it into a full expansion. It's just, we do crazy stuff here from time to time. I would like to make some co-op rules for Clank, but we don't have time for everything. So yeah, there's a lot of possibility space within the Clank universe.
Yeah. So a good follow-up to that is TWBGG asked if are there any plans for a 5th player expansion? I know we've discussed this a little bit on some of my visits, but what's your feeling on adding a 5th player?
Yeah, it's something I would like to do, but I want to do it well, is the thing. I think if you just throw a 5th player onto some of the regular Clank boards, I don't think the game experience is going to be of high enough quality for me to be proud to put that out. Yeah. So I think we need to kind of figure out a way in which to do it so that everybody's having fun, right? There will certainly be a pacing issue no matter what, just like with any game that goes from 4 to 5. You will now slow down, and any one particular player will play a little bit slow, less frequently, but there's other problems beyond that, like the number of secrets on the board. The 5th player comes in, and imagine you're walking into the dungeon and all the secrets in front of you have been scoured by the other players. That's the bigger issue for me, that I don't really want to do that, So maybe it would require a new map, or a secret pack that lets you add more secrets to the map. We've got to figure out a way to kind of solve those problems so that players don't experience Clank, in a bad way and just think that the game is not good when we knew that you shouldn't have gone to 5, which is why we didn't put 5 in the base box.
No, that would never happen. Players would never ask for something and then tell us that it was wrong. That's silly.
That's a tough one.
Oh wait, this is the best question I've seen so far. So hypothetical question. If Clank the movie becomes a project, who does the voice for Nikki or Erraticus?
Maybe it's not a hypothetical question. Maybe we are working on it.
How do you know, people?
Nikki, Nyctotraxian, who would be her voice? I guess, if I could get Meryl Streep on board, she's always good.
Yeah.
What has she ever been bad in? So I would bank on her. And then what's the other question? The other voice?
The other, Lord Erraticus.
Lord Erraticus.
Yeah.
Rutger Hauer? I don't know. It's a tough one.
That'd be good. How about James Earl Jones?
James Earl Jones, sure. Yeah.
I like it. Some pretty good questions. Basically, you guys in chat are awesome. So thank you for being here because these questions are great.
Ooh, I see another good question. Have you ever thought of a premium version with painted miniatures instead of meeples?
I'm sure we have.
I'm sure we have.
You may have thought about it more than me, actually. I'm thinking more usually of the cards and the designs and stuff, and you and Scott here at Direwolf are, I think, kind of more into the production side and thinking about the cool things, the cool add-ons and things. Do people know about the Mummy's Curse stuff, for example? Okay. Because it comes with like an alternate dragon meeple, for example.
Right.
Like that wasn't something I would have even thought of. Like, I didn't see that coming, but it's cool.
Yeah, I'm all about the toys. So the more toys we can add to the game, the better.
That's pretty obvious looking at your background.
Oh, no. This isn't my room. This isn't my room. I just borrowed this room.
So I have a question for the chat while we do another question for Paul in between. I would like to know, what would you guys want in a deluxe edition, just for funsies?
All right.
So while you guys are working on that question, what else do we have for Paul?
Oh, I saw something good here. Where'd it go? Where'd it go?
Oh, there's just so many of them.
Yeah.
I
think something I was specifically looking for. Oh, somebody asked, was there a mechanic that you really wanted to work in Clank, but you really loved it, but it just couldn't get it to work, and you had to take it out of the game that would have made the game fundamentally different?
That's a great question. I don't have the best memory, but I churn through so many ideas. Like, it's just part of my job, and it's become second nature to me to just throw out ideas. But yeah, if there had been something that I loved that I had to have to cut, you'd think that I'd remember it. The marketplace did work differently, but we changed it and felt good about changing it. So that's not quite a great answer. The monkey shrine was kind of in there almost from day one. Honestly, like a lot with Clank, it is weird because just a lot of it kind of stuck.
It is really amazing how tight the game is, right? Like, everything just works and feels right. Like I was saying, like, player elimination and the push your luck piece of it, the way the flow of movement works, the game and everything. I mean, I was like when I played your crayon creation.
It's my crayon. It was well crafted pen.
Colored pen and pencil. No, it was very cool. I have the board. Don't make me go into the other room and dig that board out. So no, it was really impressive how it did gel really, really well. I
did think of something, by the way, to answer the question.
Yeah, what is it?
It's one of the first versions had it was kind of modular board in a way. Like, the first thing you would do is build the dungeon by, like, the paths were there, but you would shuffle up all these tokens and then lay out the tokens, and like they would have different colors like yellow and blue, indicating like difficulty. So you'd shuffle them and put out the tokens. Oh, this one is a double boot passage, and this one has a monster, and that was cool from I want modularity perspective, which a lot of people are asking for. But it did get cut because it was just too much to set up, right? Like, because the game also has secrets to lay out. So yeah.
Okay, so the best suggestion I've seen in chat right now is a bag of sand for the newest release. No, that's silly.
I like the one that said that they wanted to have little premium hearts for health. I think I'm going to play this on Valentine's Day with conversation hearts instead of health tokens.
Are you keep them when they're full?
Yes. That would be awesome.
There's some good stuff in there, though. Ooh, I would like this. Minis for the monkey idols. Little monkey.
Oh, yeah. That would be awesome.
That would be really sweet.
Awesome.
I hope
I would go down there and get those just because they look cool.
Yeah. Steph, you need to take notes.
Yep, copy, paste, go.
Oh, this is interesting. Somebody asked, was there ever backstory for any of the special characters considered in Clank?
Not really. I don't want to like make too much of the lore of Clank. Like it is definitely somewhat generic fantasy with some silliness and some specificity added, like the monkey stuff. And like I would say the monkey stuff is probably the most deep we went on lore. Like, oh, there was the ape lords, thousands of years ago, and they had a society based on the number 3, and that's why all the cards that are like monkey based have 3. Like, and there's 3 monkey idols, stuff like that. But like, no, a lot of the characters are like the Duke, and the Duke wants to raise an army to get back his duchy. So you need to collect a lot of gold. Like a lot of it is kind of like fantasy tropes,
Sure.
and not trying to take the lore too seriously.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a backstory kind of for Lord Eradicus. I mean, he's just a jerk.
Yeah. I guess with space, we actually went a little deeper because there's the faction element of space too. So there's the resistance going on in there up against Lord Eradicus, and lo and behold, all the prisoners that you find on the ship are resistance prisoners. Then there's the outlaws, and they kind of don't care that much about the freeing prisoners, but they care about making money and stuff and contraband.
Yeah.
And then of course the science faction. So like, yeah, I guess we did a little bit more world building in space.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to make a movie, you better work on putting out those novels that Trevin Taylor is asking for in chat first, and then you'll be set for your movie.
Well, maybe we'll get some Clank fan fiction.
Oh, there you go. Chat, get on that.
Yeah, keep it family friendly.
Very fun.
So
awesome.
Let's see. Here's a good question for you. This comes up a lot. We get this. People email customer service and stuff with suggestions and ideas, and I see this on the message boards a lot. What's your feeling on variable player powers?
That's a great question. Actually, it's something that like designers debate a lot. Variable player. So I love Cosmic Encounter is one of my favorite games of all time. I played a ton of it in the 80s. And that game kind of paved the way, I think, for variable player powers. They're great because they can sometimes give you like kind of a quest, they can give you something to do. Like I am the sorcerer, I am going to do this thing. But in a way, and you might think that they're more replayable because you can shuffle up and get a different player power, but they also take away a bit of agency from a player. Like, well, they give me something to do, but I've played this game a lot. I don't need something to do. So, it's a debatable topic, like whether, different designs, I think you can fall on one side or the other, whether you would want them. On Clank, I fell on the side of, we're going to have a lot of kind of build around cards in the file so that you can find one of their first cards that kind of is your power, right? Like you get the Duke, and he tells you need to get a lot of gold because he'll pay you for a bunch of gold. So you're kind of like the Duke now. And in a way, I find that more replayable because now the flop of the adventure deck is going to kind of determine your outcome, and you need to be flexible and kind of react to that. But it's a great question, and it's possible that Clank could have been better had we done variable player powers and like different custom decks for the players instead of everybody gets the same deck.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, it's kind of a toss up, but they're also very hard to balance, and they're hard to expand on.
Yeah, yeah, they are, like, because you have to be careful, and a lot of times you end up in a situation where, okay, because they're so hard to balance, they have to be very lightweight.
Yeah.
And then that can be disappointing to players who are like, well, I thought this was going to mean more than it meant, but well, it didn't, because it would have broken the game.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Oh,
yeah,
what's next, Sarah?
It can be pretty intense. So unless chat has some other great questions for us in the next few minutes, I think we are coming towards the end of our show. So we're going to go over a few things that Renegade did in the last week, actually. So one thing that was pretty exciting for us this week, Scott, you actually went and visited OniPress. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I was in Portland, and it was cold, and I didn't like it.
Most of the U.S. does not sympathize with you.
Yeah, I had to leave beautiful San Diego, though it's been really hot here too. So, so no, I was up visiting the guys at Oni, and we were talking about you know, what we're working on now, and Scott Pilgrim deck building game, and some new projects that we're not quite ready to announce yet, but well, we did announce T-Dragon Society, and that's almost done and kind of in the pipe, and we'll be out not too long far from now, right? Like, I don't know if we've announced the release date for that yet, but it's soon.
We haven't released the release date yet, but I do have something that I can show as a little bit of a spoiler. So I'm working on getting ready for Toy Fair next week, which is this big event where a lot of different groups of people, distributors, retailers, publishers all get together. It's a trade show, and we show each other the cool new stuff that we have going on. So is that all right if I show this? Do you know what this is?
Yes, I know what it is. Go for it.
Okay, so one thing that I do for this show is that if we have products that we want to tell people about, but they're not quite ready yet, we don't have real copies, I go to Staples and I print out what we call the die line for the game. So I actually printed this out at Staples yesterday. This is the front box cover of the T-Dragon Society. So I will cut this out, origami it a little bit, and then put it on top of a copy of Honshu that I have because it's exactly the same size box, and they'll look like a real copy even though I don't have one yet. So that's kind of a fun little craft project that I get to do tomorrow. But I think it's kind of neat to get to see, I'll show this one more time, get to see what that looks like before it goes onto a box, sort of like wrapping a present.
Yeah, it's really cool. So that's Sarah's doing her arts and crafts, and she'll make up a mock-up of it and everything. So I'm glad that Sarah will do that, because if I did it, it would not look like anything anybody would ever want to buy.
I actually keep quite a few of these. So that Scott Pilgrim box I have up there, that is not a real copy at all. That actually is a copy of Gravwell that has Scott Pilgrim origamied onto it.
Yeah.
And we have some good questions about the T-Dragon Society. What is the age range for that? And now that I have my box, it says 13 plus. I think most of you in the chat are probably gamers, and your kids have probably played a lot of games by now. And so I would expect most of you, if you have an 8-year-old or older, could grasp this game pretty easily.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Katie's books, if you're not familiar with Katie, her first book, Princess Ever After, came out last year and was immediately picked up by Scholastic. So it's now part of the Scholastic program. So her stuff it's like a young reader's series of books, though they're all different, new adventures, different stories, different characters, and T-Dragon Society is. So hopefully we're gonna be working on her stuff for the foreseeable future. It's really cute and charming, kind of young readers, but something that you can play, you know, with your parents and everything too. So we really like her stuff. It's very, very cool. Check it out. T-Dragon Society just came out in October, and it was like top of the graphic novel charts, and it's just very charming. So if you have, you know, tweens, young kids, they might enjoy it.
It's very cute.
It is.
So you got to chat with them about that, a few other projects we're working on. And
something very, very big.
I cannot wait to talk about that project.
It is a big project. It might kill us, but we're going to do it. So
I think that it fits squarely into if you haven't seen this from Renegade yet, then this is something new and different that pushes us. It's a team, and it will be very exciting and different. Yes,
we're working on other products in that category, but not exactly like this one. So in that sense, it will be a true Renegade first. Yeah, hopefully we'll be alive. But we'll be showing people more about it this year, but the product itself probably will not be out until early 2019.
Yeah.
But we'll start showing you stuff.
So also this week, we did get copies of Lucidity out to a few other people, and I know we did an unboxing of that last week, so if you wanted to go back and see that, you can. But I actually got to play it because my copy arrived, and it was fabulous. I am super excited about this game. It's really fast, it's really easy to grasp, but every time you play, it's going to be a little different, and it's a good push or let game. So can't wait to show you guys more about that one. All right, so another segment that we've done every time so far that I'm excited about is Guess the Game Component, and I'm actually ready for it this week. And so you guys in chat, get ready here. I'm going to show you a game component from one of our games. And the first person to type into chat the correct name of the game that it is associated with will win a copy of that game. So if you guys are ready.
Can Paul play?
If Paul wants to play, you can play, Paul.
Okay, sure, I'll give it a shot.
All right.
All right. This is one of my favorite components that we have made so far. I think it's just very cool.
Paul, don't yell it out. You have to type it in chat.
Okay.
All right. Oh, I know what that is. I win. I get one.
I think you can have as many as you want. Oh, sentient. Not it, but a good guess.
Turn it on.
I see a few people who got it. Awesome. Well, Steph is helping us out with the chat this evening, so she's also going to be keeping track of who got that into the chat first. But the correct answer is, of course, topiary. And I love these components. So this is the green player color and one of the first meeples of its kind, I believe.
Yeah. So we've had some requests from gamers to actually get more of those meeples in different colors. And I don't know if we've mentioned this before. We may have, and I've forgotten.
We haven't yet.
No, we haven't. Okay, so we'll tell people. So we're actually going to make packs of those in all different meeple colors and put packs of them up on the stores and bring them to conventions and stuff for gamers that would like to have meeples of in a wheelchair that represents them, so that way they can have a meeple that's more in tune with who they are and how they would like to play their game. So we're going to make them in a bunch of different colors. Like I said, we got some customer service requests for them, so we decided to do it. I think we'll have them in about 2 months. They're being made now. We put the order in, so they should be on the way soon.
And those are actually going to be available on our online store, which we also launched this last week for the first time. So we wanted to make it a little bit easier for some of our fans who are maybe in a place without a friendly local game store to be able to buy stuff. And then also so that we can do some of these more specialized things, because it's a great idea to have these wheelchair meeples, but they might be a little bit hard to put out as a product through distribution and go through the regular channels. So we wanted to make it possible for you guys to get that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and in this case too, like this little meeple pack, we're going to price it super low. Really the intent is just to make it available and get it out there for people. So it's more of a service than anything. That's yeah.
I think that'll be good. And then next week, we also have another guest on. Oh, not next week. Next week is Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So I suggest that all of you play Clank with Conversation Hearts, because that's going to be exciting and tasty. But then the week after that, February 21st, it's a Wednesday at 6 o'clock Pacific time, we're going to be having a special guest star, the designer of Castell. And if you haven't seen Castell yet, it's coming out on the 21st. So we'll be celebrating that with Vanderbeek, the designer here on the show. And tomorrow, actually, Rodney Smith is releasing his how to play video. So if you don't know anything about the game yet, you can learn all about it tomorrow when he posts that video.
Right. On his Watch It Played YouTube channel. Is that where it's going to be?
That is where it's going to be. You will also for sure find it on our channels as well. So you can go to Play Renegade on Facebook, Play RGS on Twitter, or Renegade Game Studios on Instagram. And we will have it there for all of those different places. And it'll be in our newsletter next week as well. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. Paul, thank you so much for answering all those awesome questions. You were a delight to have on here. We got some really great insight about Clank. I can't wait to go play it again now. I'm all fired up.
It was my pleasure. This was a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and we'll be keeping an eye out for The Mummy's Curse, which is coming in late March, early April. And if you guys want to hear more about what Direwolf has going on, Paul, where can we find out more about Direwolf?
Direwolfdigital.com is where you can find out about us and our other games and things.
Nice.
And also at Direwolf Digital on Twitter. You guys are very active there as well.
We have a Twitter, yeah.
You do. some of your fabulous team members are in charge of that one for you. And so, yeah, please send Paul all of your questions there. Go check out what they have going on. They have some other very cool digital card games like Eternal that they launched last year. Lots of good stuff going on at Direwolf. So we will see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you guys so much for all the great questions, and have a beautiful evening.
All right. Bye, folks.
Bye.